Today I begin a series on interior mods for the Model 3. Today specifically I discuss lowering the screen and changing the angle, remounting it, making custom mounts for the back. So here's how I did it. Alright, welcome back everybody. I'm really excited about this next series of videos. So for those of you that own a Model 3, some of the early people, I'm not sure, I don't think everybody got one of these. I believe this was just for those of us that stood in line early on and pre-ordered, but we were sent this envelope. And inside the envelope was this. It's just a little postcard saying thanks for ordering, but they gave these initial design sketches. Now let me hold that up close so you can see here. Now those design sketches, if you look closely, you'll notice the car is lowered and it's got 20-inch wheels. So I've lowered my car 1 inch and put 20-inch wheels on it. I love that look. Tinted windows, I tinted my windows. Also, if you look at the interior, a couple of things that you'll notice. For one thing, the screen is mounted much lower. In fact, it's almost level with the dashboard. And then also the steering wheel is flat on the bottom and cut on the top. I really do like that look. So to that end, I have begun the interior side of this. Now, I didn't want to bring this up previously, the fact that I'm turning my car into what was shown in the brochure, primarily because I didn't want to let the cat out of the bag and give away what I'm doing to the interior. But today I've lowered the screen, and specifically it's been lowered 2.5 inches. It's at about the same depth away from the dash, but it's been lowered 2.5 inches, and I tipped it back 10 degrees. Now, the reason for the tip back of 10 degrees is sort of multifaceted. For one thing, it's just for practical reasons. When you lower the screen, it changes your angle at which you look at the screen. And number two, in that image, the screen is angled back. In fact, it looks further than this. The screen appears to be angled back to match the center console. Now, I have my little tablet mounted right here, which I can, from my sight line, I can still see the tablet. I can still reach the top edge of it for the buttons. But I tried angling the screen back. This is about 20 degrees from where the screen was previously. I tried angling it back 20 degrees and it was just way too far back. And even this 10 degrees might be a little bit much. I might experiment making different shims to bring it maybe at about 8 degrees. 5 degrees was not nearly enough. 20 was way too far. So I'm at 10 degrees right now. I like it a lot. So it changes as you drop the screen, your line of sight. You need to change the angle a little bit. Also, I wanted a more aggressive look. My wife has a Ford Fusion, and it's got a nice angled dash. Many exotic cars have a dash that is very steeply angled. In fact, the Roadster has a very shallow angle there to the screen, and I wanted to emulate that a little bit. So this is, I don't want to say adjustable, but there are wedge shims behind here, and I can make them. I just made them on my my angle cut bandsaw. I can make any shims that I want to change the angle. I think I'm going to settle on 8 degrees, and but again, it's 2.5 degrees down, or 2.5 inches down, 10 degrees tilted back, and so that your sight line required a little bit of an angle change. But beyond that, there was also the I felt that the screen, just the factory height of the screen, was too high. In fact, the top edge of the screen was right at the base of my windshield there, and I felt like it was up. I don't know. It just seemed like it was up too high. And now I'm a tall person. I lower my seat all the way down, and but my head, I'm still sitting relatively high. When my wife gets in the car, the screen was actually cutting from her line of sight. Even with her adjusting the seat where she liked it, the screen was actually cutting into the windshield where she said it blocked part of the windshield. So I wanted it dropped down for that reason. Also, the next modification, which I'm already most of the way done with, is modifying a steering wheel. I purchased a steering wheel from eBay, a Junkyard Model 3 steering wheel, and I have shortened the bottom and made it flat and then cut the top. So it looks very much like this image. Let me show you this, this image once again here. So take a good close look at the interior and this dash screen and the steering wheel, and look at how they're at a similar height. Now, one issue with the screen at the stock height, as I was modifying the other steering wheel and had it installed, the height of this steering wheel matched the height of the screen to a large extent. I mean, you can adjust the steering wheel, but you know what I mean. They looked somewhat symmetrical, and they complemented each other. The height that they both superintended within your sight line. But once I cut the wheel down, it exaggerated the look of how high the screen was, and it looked weird with a cut top wheel and a stock height screen. So I thought I got to do something about that, and I wanted to change the layout of the screen anyway. So with the cut top wheel and the screen lowered, it has a very nice look to it. You no longer have this blocking your vision of your view of the dash. You no longer have the top of the screen blocking your view of the dash. Suddenly you can see the entire dashboard just flat, and you would think that would, well, it's a flat surface. Honestly, it makes the car feel more open and larger, and but I like the aggressive look. And I like the way that they look together. Now, mounting the screen as I've done here was not an easy task. I've actually I did this 3 separate times. I made 3 separate mounts for the back, and after a while I was sweating bullets. My hands were greasy, and so I didn't get as much videoed as I would have liked. But here's some footage of the very first mount that I made. So let's take a look. Now, when you go up underneath the screen, you'll notice this panel here. So there's that little notch, and to release that panel, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Once you get that cover off, there are 2 hexagonal bolts here, and a little awkward. There we go. There's one, and there's the other. They are 10 millimeter. So we'll go ahead and remove those, and that should loosen up the screen from the mount. So now that you've got those bolts off, you'll see that the screen will separate right out of the car. So definitely making some headway. And there's the wire loom. So got my hand on the controls there. Anyway, so that's the mount, and it looks like we've got enough wire to do what I want to do. So ideally, you can see that's the original angle. I'd like to move it down and back for a sleeker look. So let's get to work. Okay, on the back of the screen, we've got 2 Torx bolts that look like it holds the this plastic bezel on. So I'm going to go ahead and remove those. So there's the bezel removed, and now we've got this connector we can remove, and the screen will be free. Now, all I really need to do is make an adapter that clamps to these bosses and then fits right into these 2 slots here that bolt down tight and then hold the screen. So they're going to have to be very, very sturdy, but that's not a problem. It's what I do. So there's that connector removed. Let me get this bezel out of the way. Little side note, on this cover here, there's a component, and if you read the fine print there, it says in-car temp sensor. So that's going to have to be removed as well, and just installed someplace where it can read the temp at the inside of the car, but we'll set that aside for now. This connector, to remove this, there is this, holding and filming at the same time here, there's this release tab right there. So that tab has to be squeezed in, and so see if I can get a better view here. So there's the way the connector would fit, and you have to squeeze that tab and lift. I had to use needle nose pliers on that tab and then gently pull to release it. So now that that's released, you can see the inside of the connector. There are 4 small prongs in the center there, and then 2 on the sides. You want to be extra careful not to affect those. This is obviously a ground strap. That's fine. The mount I'll be making will be metal, so it will still ground up to the chassis of the car. So I'm going to go ahead and start measuring and see what size mount I need to make for this. All right, so we've got my micrometer here, and you can see that the thickness of these bosses is 706 thousandths, or let's see here, 18 millimeters. So that's the thickness of each boss, and the distance between the holes is going to be right about 106 millimeters, or 4.2 inches basically. So that's what we have to make. A bracket that clamps to this part of the screen and then inserts into here very solidly. It has to clamp very solidly. I want the screen to be very, very sturdy. So it'll be an assembly that mounts in here, that drops down, that the screen mounts into, and changes its angle just slightly. All right, so I found this chunk of aluminum. It is 6061, and the width is perfect, and it's just a tiny bit thicker than it needs to be. So I'm going to go ahead and machine a mount that will, a component that will slide in here, and then I can build down off of it for the screen mount. All right, so we're cutting the first bracket here on the bandsaw. All right, so there we've got the screen laying down on the bench, and the mount will go just like that. So got holes drilled and tapped all the way through on the correct angle. So we'll go ahead and bolt it together and put it in the car. All right, there's the mount installed onto the screen. Now you can see all these washers. I'm using those as shims. I can raise and lower the screen a little bit. I could actually get longer bolts and really make for some steep adjustment. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and install it in the car and see how it looks. So one other thing that has to be done is this in-cabin temperature sensor has to be unscrewed with a couple torque screws there. And I'm going to go ahead and just zip tie it to this bracket here, because that's the area that the cabin temperature sensor was anyway. So we'll just zip tie it there for now, and you know, if I want to do some kind of a more permanent mount later, I can, but it's just a small plastic item that I think zip tying it there will be just fine. Now you can see, it's kind of tight back there, but you can see that there are some offset shims that were made and a couple of brackets to drop it down. This is my view from the front seat, and you can see that the screen used to go up and kind of match right at the edge of the windshield from my vantage point, and now it's down. I can see the whole flat dash in front of me. So I went back and I changed the angle and I shortened it, and I kept remaking it, run into the hardware store for different bolts and shims and spacers and sleeves and different things, and finally have settled on this setup here. Now I didn't video making of this particular mount, partly because it's not finished. It's a little rough looking back there, and I wanted to make sure that I like where it's at, and then I'll go ahead and go back and show you guys what that mount looks like. Also, If there's any interest in mounts like this to reposition the screen, let me know. And I've got a couple of machine shops in the area that I hire out for doing CNC work for the bike stuff I make, and I don't mind making a batch of screen mounts. Would probably not be cheap because I'd only have a dozen or so made, but if you have an interest in that, let me know. Honestly, you can pull the screen and could install this mount kit and reinstall the screen inside of 10 minutes if you're technically inclined, 20 minutes if you're all thumbs. So it really is easy to do. Also, the screen is still very solidly mounted. It's really it's it's on there. I mean, it's one of the nice things about the Model 3 screen is it's so solidly mounted, and yet it will be more solid than this. Right now, the hardware that I have holding it on is not as substantial as I'd like, but it is. I'm ordering grade 8 hardware and that. So anyway, so that's the screen, and I'm excited to show you the wheel. It's actually behind me, laying on the floor, but it's not upholstered yet. It's fully modified, but not upholstered. So we'll save that for another video. So the next video will be the steering wheel. As pleasant as it is to look at wood grain, it doesn't really match. I don't think it matches the motif of a high-tech vehicle such as the Model 3. So I'm torn. I don't know that I want to spend the money on a carbon fiber dash panel. I'm not big on carbon fiber unless it's functional. I don't like just decorative carbon fiber necessarily, but who knows, maybe I'll just get a black wrap for it. I've had people suggest that I get the white Performance 3 dash. I don't know. I think white is too stark. There's no other white in the car. I'm not having the wheel upholstered in white, so I don't know. I think one piece of white in the interior would be a bit much. So anyway, so it's going to be black or dark gray, but I'm going to definitely get rid of the wood grain. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are on this. I know it's probably not something everybody's going to like. I could have lowered it further and put it flush against the dash and really gone crazy with it, but I wanted to be subtle. Chip Foose had said that, you know, you've done a good job when somebody walks up to the vehicle, walks around, looks at it, and says, I know you did something, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Then you know you did a good job. If I lowered it further and slammed it flat against the dash and that, it would, for one thing, it would be an extremely difficult modification. Also, let me move my tablet out of the way here. This still opens and closes just fine. So it does touch the mount, so I'm going to put a little rubber stopper just to protect the piano black finish. But yeah, I didn't want to go really crazy with it. I wanted to make sure that it was subtle enough that it wasn't this, whoa, look at what you did, and yet it was changed enough that those who know and will really like it. So that's where I'm at with it. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments section if you like this mod or not. And if you guys have an interest in me manufacturing accessory mounts like this and selling a kit, just let me know. I'm more than happy to do that. I have experience in small production run machining and marketing of you know, small custom made items, so I have no problem doing that. Anyway, thanks a lot, guys. Can't wait to show you the steering wheel and the other mods I have planned. Have a great day now. Bye-bye.